We started making Combat Mission because we were dissatisfied with the level of realism in war games. They tended to be table-based, which meant that a roll of the dice checked the table and it said, well, you got a 3, you win, 4, you lose. And that's just not how warfare really works. So even from the very beginning, we approached things from a physics standpoint, where we did detailed modeling of the armor and the penetrations. And if a shot hit, it was determined by physics. And if a shot penetrated, it was determined by physics, not rolls of the dice. And this applied to everything within the game. And then over the years, as technology improved and we were able to do more, we expanded that to be more realistic and to have more options available to people that were not available before. We believe that we have the most realistic real-time simulation of tactical warfare because we approach the entire thing from that angle from the very, very start. Realism can be done, but only if you plan for it. We found that the combination of the 3D graphics, which were crude for the day, or crude to compare it to today, but were really about as good as they could have been back then. The combination of the 3D environment and the WeGo system really engaged a lot of people that were not necessarily interested in war games before, and we credit that with our longevity and our success since then is appealing beyond the traditional core wargaming market. The level of complexity of the battles allowed people to really absorb the history of those battles and see them for what they were in the history books, and to experience them in a way that was not possible with the earlier treatment of the battlefield, because we were going broad and not deep. One of the most important aspects of the game is the TAC AI. That is the behavior under the hood, which dictates when a unit runs or hides or returns fire, which weapons they use, how they react to casualties, how they react to the player's orders under those particular circumstances. All of this stuff is critical to Combat Mission because, I mean, without it, the game wouldn't be playable, because you, the player, cannot micromanage every single unit every single time there's a shot, every single time a unit walks around a corner. And yet, if the game doesn't handle that correctly, in the player's belief will evaporate. I mean, if the unit goes to a certain place and behaves in a way that they find to be unrealistic, then the engagement with the game breaks down at that point. And this is not an easy thing for us to do. Humans are unpredictable, but they do work within inside of certain parameters. So we've spent a lot of time and a lot of research to make sure that units behave differently under different circumstances, but yet predictably, in terms of the good unit behaves generally better than the bad unit. The bad unit under bad circumstances will behave really badly. But yet you get those historical truths, which is sometimes the bad unit holds out when you don't expect it to, and sometimes the really good unit breaks when you don't think it should. That sort of thing is what makes Combat Mission very different from other games, is the consistency and the realism that you find with how the computer processes information in a simulated way to produce game results that people believe and have faith in. I don't think anybody was very surprised that after all these years of being independent, almost 25 years of being independent, that we teamed up with Slitherine in the way that we did, with a full acquisition. Fortunately, we had been working with Slitherine for about 5 years in publishing various capacities, first starting with the professional series and then with republishing our existing catalog of titles. The relationship had been great from the start. It continued being great, and we felt very, very confident that moving to Slitherine was the right move. When we started negotiating the sale of Battlefront to Slitherine, we came up with a concept for how it would work, and it was basically that all the Battlefront people would move over and become the core of a new development unit within inside of Slitherine, and that is exactly what happened. People were added to our team, and we instantly grew to 3 times the capacity that we had for producing work. And yet all the core guys are still there and still doing their thing, and we are working as a larger team, and it's just been very, very smooth ever since the very start of this. We've hit the ground running. We didn't have to go back and revise our strategy. The goals that Slitherine has set for us were the same that we came in with, and so, I mean, things are really, really, really smooth. Cold War explores the possibility of what warfare would have looked like back in the late 1970s and 1980s. The initial release had focused on the U.S. forces and the Soviet forces, and now with this new DLC, we've added the British and the Canadians to the mix, which were a significant portion of NATO's standing force at the time. Not only do we include them, but we also bring the time frame back a couple of years to 1977 and simulate the way the war might play out in the northern part of Germany, which is where the Canadian British forces were located. As you would expect with any combat mission release, we have gone into great detail with the force structures of the day, the TO&E, and to do that, we need to have equipment. So with the British, you will find the Chieftain, the Sultans, the Scimitars, Swing Fires, etc. And for the Canadians, you're going to get things like the unique Leopard C1, the Centurions, and the Lynx. You've even thrown in flamethrowers for good measure. Basically, all the small arms and the mortars and the artillery that you would expect to support the British and the Canadian forces are in there. What we've also done is we've included the Soviet airborne forces, and this includes their vehicles and equipment and organization. And that will bring something new to the Soviet side, as well as having new forces to play with the British and the Canadians. We've included 3 new campaigns. There's one for the British, one for the Canadians, and one from the Soviet perspective. These are all about the size of other campaigns we've had, some a little larger, with up to 8 missions each. We're also including more than a dozen standalone scenarios which explore different aspects of combat with the combinations of British, Canadian, and Soviet units. So the question might be, well, when can you get your hands on this new DLC for Cold War? And the answer is right now. Surprise! We have released it. You can go right after this video and buy yourself a copy and download it right now.